Hello friends, welcome to Tarunayas. Today we will be discussing the editorials from the Hindu of 4th of November 2022. Let's discuss the editorial. The topic is the expansion of World Network of Biosphere. You can relate this topic with your General Studies paper 3, that is Environment Conservation. The source is the Hindu. This is the article which I have taken from the Hindu, a chance to expand the world's biosphere footprint. So let's discuss what the writers have to say. There are several writers. For example, the Nidhi Midha, who is associated with the Program Office of UNESCO. We have Gunter Koch, a member Austrian MAB National Committee, Austria, from the Academy of Sciences. We have Miguel got a former director, UNESCO Division of the Ecological and Earth Sciences, and we have got Benno Boer, a chief natural science unit, UNESCO New Delhi office. So the people who are associated with UNESCO have written this. We know that since 2011, UNESCO has been running a program which is by the name MAB, which is Man and Biosphere. Now, what does this imply? So on November 3rd, the world had celebrated the International Day for the Biosphere Reserves. And this was the first International Day for Biospheres that was observed in the year 2022. So this becomes very important from the prelims point of view. So this fact needs to be remembered. So what does the writer has to say? The writer says that there are three contexts which are very important when we talk about the expanding the footprint of the biosphere reserves. The first is the climate change, and the second is the commitment being made by several countries with respect to carbon neutrality, and the third point is the minimizing the utilization of the fossil fuels and also having a self-sustaining environment, and so as to have the human population adapt to climate change, as well as increase or enhance our capacity and capability to mitigate the climate change. So the writer says, the writer talks about expanding the footprint in three contexts. The first is the International Day for the Biosphere Reserve that was celebrated for the first time on 3rd of November 2022. The second point is about the South and the Central Asia MAB Reserve Networking Meeting that has been planned for the year 2023 to advance the Biosphere Reserve establishment and management. The third point is about the in addition to these two, an expert mission has been planned for the spring of 2023 to Bhutan, the India's northeastern area, and the Sundarbans in the West Bengal. Now, if you look at the present scenario in Bhutan and Nepal, there are no biosphere reserves. There are no biosphere reserves so far declared. India does have the biosphere reserve that we will see in the subsequent slides. So the point is that Nepal and Bhutan, being close to the Himalayas, have not been able to declare the biosphere reserves. And biosphere reserves are very important because in this biosphere reserve we find a sort of collaboration between the nature and the human. So both they work together as an integral part of the environment, so as to not only sustain their interdependence relationship as well, but also extract benefit from each other's activities. So human are not above nature, rather human is an integral part of the environment. So therefore it is an utmost responsibility and onus on the human population to conserve the environment. So therefore declaring the biosphere reserves becomes very important. So the World Network of Biosphere Reserve, it dates back to 1971, and it works as a backbone. The biosphere reserve system of the world works as a backbone for biodiversity conservation, for ecosystem restoration, and living in harmony with nature. It is basically a unique tool for cooperation through the sharing knowledge, exchanging the experience, building capacity, and promoting the best practices when it comes to environmental conservation. So we have to revert. So according to the writer says that we have to revert to living in harmony with nature, to be able to breathe clean air, to have access to enough good water, eat nutritious and affordable food, and live with dignity. So if we consider the report by IPCC in this year, it says that almost 50% of the flora and fauna have gone extinct and in fact some are on the verge of extinction because of the anthropogenic reasons. Anthropogenic reasons. And the human population directly or indirectly depends upon the nature for food purpose, for religion, for etc. There are lot many ways in which we depend upon nature. For example, nature worship is there, the Sarna tradition of India, the tribal people, they revere nature. We have got system of sacred groves. So the nature is an integral part of human life, even when it comes to the from the moral perspective, from the religious perspective, from the scientific perspective. Nature nature is not below human, but rather is associated with human in such a inseparable way. So in order to have affordable food, we need to revert to living in harmony with nature. So according to the writer, he says that from the writer says that whatever from whatever vantage point we look at nature conservation, the environmental, the cultural, or the religious point of view, it is our responsibility to respect nature. The best concept of living in harmony with nature is exhibited by World Network of Biosphere Reserve. World Network of Biosphere Reserve. So let's look at the nomination process, that how the government of a certain country who expresses the interest or will to declare a certain region as a biosphere reserve follows the process. The first thing is that all biosphere reserves, they are internationally recognized sites on the land, the coast and the ocean. So we have got Marine Biosphere Reserve in India, which is Gulf of Mannar as India's first marine biosphere reserve, right? So it can be on the land. For example, the first biosphere reserve of India was Nilgiri. So it could be on the land, the coast, the oceans, etc. And the government alone decide that which area is to be nominated. So when the government sends the nomination to the UNESCO, because the program is run by UNESCO, so before the approval by the UNESCO, the site is externally examined. That means it is inspected for various parameters that UNESCO had decided. It manages a plan that how it can reinforce the credibility checks, and while remaining under the sovereignty of their national government, right? So this is how the nomination process is done. So the second thing and the most important thing that the writer points in this article is the opportunities in South Asia. So if we take the example of Spain, then Spain has the maximum biosphere reserve in if we compare it with any other country in the world, it has the maximum number of biosphere reserves. So in South Asia, if we particularly speak of the South Asia, there are over 30 biosphere reserves that have been so far established. And the first biosphere reserve that was established in South Asia was in Sri Lanka by the name the Hurulu Biosphere Reserve. The Hurulu Biosphere Reserve was the first in the South Asia. So this is the factual information. It is spread across the 25,500 acres of tropical dry evergreen forest. And in India, the first biosphere reserve that was designated by UNESCO was in the year 2000, the Blue Mountains of the Nilgiri, stretching over the three states of Union of India, that is Tamil Nadu, Karnataka and Kerala. So if we consider the maximum long-term threats to the human survivability and the armed conflicts such as biodiversity loss, the climate change, pollution and population dynamics accelerated by the blind belief in technological solutions for all problems. So if you go to the playlist of our editorial discussion, we had discussed the forest-led COP27. So this, if you connect these two articles, then you will be able to understand that how the G20 presidency of India is important, and also if we consider all the factors that are associated with the climate change and the commitments which are made by various countries and also India. So therefore the forest becomes very important. Forests, they work as the carbon sink. They work as carbon sink. They provide lot many benefits, even more than as a human we can think of. So forests are of utmost important. And if you connect these two articles, the forest led COP 27, which is going to be held next year, and also the and expanding the footprint of the biosphere reserve. So this is what the writer wants to say, that South Asia, which has less number of biosphere reserve, it gives plethora of opportunity to explore and declare as many biosphere reserve as possible, so as to have an integral and harmony and living in harmony with nature concept. So this is the first biosphere reserve. This is the picture of the Nilgiri tahar, which is the flagship species of the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. So Nilgiri tahar, and this is the map of India showing the Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, which is spread across 3 states of Union of India, that is Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. So India is basically it's a part of the vast subcontinent which has unlimited opportunity, and India, in order to become an important global player when it comes to the environment sustainability issue, it must work on expanding the biosphere network. It must work on expanding what? The biosphere network. So if we consider the example of Spain, which has a landmass of this 5,06,000 kilometers square and a population of just 47.4 billion, it is one of the lead participating in World Network of Biosphere Reserve countries globally with 53 properties. So let's talk a little about the India's Biosphere Reserve. This is the list of India's Biosphere Reserve, and recent addition to the list of biosphere reserves in India was the Panna Biosphere Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. So this was the recent addition. So let's have a look at the biosphere reserves in India. Starting from the north, in Himachal Pradesh we have got the cold desert. In Uttarakhand we have Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve. In Sikkim we have Kanchenjunga National Park. There are total 18 biosphere reserve, and with the addition of the Panna Biosphere Reserve we have now 19. We have Dihang and Dibang in Arunachal Pradesh. We have Manas and Dibru Sikhowa, Nokrek in Meghalaya, Sundarbans in West Bengal. We have Simplipal in Odisha, Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve in Andaman and Nicobar. We have got Gulf of Mannar in Tamil Nadu as the Marine Biosphere Reserve. We have got Seshachalam Hills in Andhra Pradesh. We have got Agastyamalai Biosphere Reserve, Nilgiri Biosphere, the first. We have got this the Panna National Park and the Panchmani Biosphere Reserve. There are total 18. The Great Run of Kanch, the Achnakmar and Amarkantak Biosphere Reserve in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, the 2 states together. So this is the list of the biosphere reserves of India. Now let's talk about the potentiality analysis. Now, if in a comparison with the surface size of Spain to India, India's human population is increasing, and by the year 2023, India is going to exceed China and becomes the world's most populous country, and thereby it will decline. And by 2041, it will reach the highest level of the population, and then onwards it's going to decline. So the writer wants to suggest that with the increasing number of the people in India, we are going to be much more dependent on the environment for sustaining this population. And if we do not include this population as an integral part of the environment, then it is going to be very difficult for us to sustain. So in order to mitigate the vulnerability of the human population and to be able to make it more self-sustaining, we need to have a concept of living in harmony with nature, and that would be only possible if we expand the footprint of the forest, and especially the concept of the biosphere reserve, which is very important when it comes to seeing the two entity, that is the nature and the human, as an integral part, as an interdependent part, not one above the other. And the writer wants to say that India can have focus on the 7 sisters in the northeast India. We need to, because considering the mountainous and the tough terrain in the northeast part of the India, we have to understand that how nature is important to the people in the northeastern part of the country. So including that population within the ecosystem, even when it comes to the infrastructure, even when we talk about the employability of the population, we have to conserve the environment in such a way so not only we are able to fulfill the expectation of the present generation, but we are able to fulfill the demands of the future generation. And that is exactly where the concept of sustainable development comes into the picture, and biosphere forms an integral part of the sustainable development. So South Asia, according to the writer, has a very diverse set of the ecosystems, including the lakes, the alpine ecosystems. We have got glaciers, etc., etc. So Bhutan, India, and Nepal, they give us plethora of opportunities so as to explore expanding the footprint of the biosphere reserve. There was an article by the Eric Falt, and he highlights that the biosphere reserves have all developed science-based management plans where the local solutions for the sustainable human living and nature conservations are being tested and best practices are applied. So even according to the writer, that is Eric Falt, the biosphere reserves, they give us the opportunity and they show us the best practices in which the human can integrate themselves with the nature. So if we look at the perspectives in the South Asia, then some of the countries in South Asia, definitely they do not have enough biosphere reserves. For example, the Bangladesh, Bhutan and Nepal, and they should be on our priority list for the environment conservation. And in Northeast India and along the coastal region of the country, it will give realization to millions of people that a better future is truly possible, one where we truly live in harmony with the nature. So thank you so much. That's it for today. Have a nice day.